Excuse me. I just stepped in quickly because I understand you want to put a stipulation on the record, is that right?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do we already have this exhibit identified? We do. We turned it in to the court.
Yes, I just handed it back to the clerk. It's 901.
Thank you, Your Honor. Exhibit 901 we're going to stipulate can be admitted into evidence subject to the stipulation that these are from Brad Miller's computer. They are email communications between Brad Miller and Mark Garrigus, and that the deletions that are in here, the deletions are done with court approval, directed by Mr. Garrigus, and they delete sections that refer to other clients.
All right. Do you agree with that stipulation?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'll approve that stipulation, and that relieves the necessity of Mr. Garrigus' appearance tomorrow. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. My understanding is he would like to fly out of town.
Microphone.
My understanding is Mark Garrigus would like to fly out of town tomorrow, and we have no objection to that, but I would not want to tell him to do so until the court approves.
I'm asking you, do either of you have any need for Mr. Garrigus to appear tomorrow?
No, Your Honor.
No.
So we can release him to go where he wants to go?
Yes.
All right, that will be fine.
Thank you. Excuse me, Your Honor.
Would you face the clerk and raise your right hand, please?
I do. Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Christine.
Ma'am, be seated first.
Christine Causer. CHRISTINE, CAUSER.
Thank you.
Counsel, before you ask a question, can you give us an indication of, I'm speaking to all of you. Are we going to have a full day tomorrow on evidence? Does that seem to be the situation?
I think we might, Your Honor.
Okay. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you. Mrs. Causer?
Yes.
Mrs. Causer, you're going to have to lean into the
Right here?
the other one.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Thank you very much. Mrs. Causer, you live in the Los Angeles area?
Yes.
And what is your current occupation?
I work as a visitation services at a mortuary.
That's at Rose Hills?
Yes, it is.
Now, at one point in time, did you work as an intern for the Mid-Valley News?
Approximately 4 or 5 years ago.
And was the person that you worked for Connie Keenan?
Yes.
She was the editor at that time?
Yes.
And you're familiar with Mrs. Keenan?
Yes.
And in connection with your work with Mrs. Keenan, did you become involved in writing an article for the Mid-Valley News?
Yes, I did.
Now, I want to ask you some questions, some specific questions. Did you ever tell Mrs. Keenan that you had delivered a cooked turkey to the Arvizo family?
Not a cooked turkey.
Okay. You delivered a turkey, did you not?
Yes.
And when you delivered that turkey to the Arvizos, did you also give them some money?
Yes.
How much did you give them?
$5.
That was a lot of money to you at that time, wasn't it?
It was somewhat, not really a lot, but it was a token amount, really.
Did you tell Mrs. Keenan that you had done that?
Yes.
And did you get in trouble for doing that from her?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever tell Mrs. Keenan that, when you delivered the uncooked turkey to the Arvizo family, that Mrs. Arvizo said to you, "That's nice, but I'd rather have money"?
No.
You never made that statement to her?
No, I did not.
Did you ever tell Mrs. Keenan that the Arvizo family was going to lose their home as a result of the medical expenses connected with their son Gavin?
I don't believe so.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Miss Causer.
Hello.
Miss Causer, my name is Tom Mesereau. I speak for Mr. Jackson. You did have a discussion with Miss Keenan about Janet Arvizo's reaction to your bringing the turkey, did you not?
Yes.
And what did you tell her Janet Arvizo's reaction was?
I just felt that she rather discarded it. She didn't seem really pleased.
And did Janet Arvizo proceed to tell you anything about her financial condition?
Yes. She did mention the medical expenses were uncovered by the insurance that they had at the time or didn't have anymore.
And did she tell you that her car had been repossessed?
Yes.
Did she tell you that one chemotherapy injection cost more than $12,000?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is beyond the scope of the direct examination. I
don't believe so, Your Honor.
I was specific as to her conversation with Mrs. Keenan.
Sustained. It's beyond the scope.
Now, did you tell Miss Keenan that Janet Arvizo told you that one chemotherapy injection cost more than $12,000?
I don't think I said more. I think I said 12,000.
And did you tell Mrs. Keenan that Janet Arvizo told you her car had been repossessed?
Yes.
Did you tell Mrs. Keenan that Janet Arvizo said they had a deteriorating financial condition?
Yes.
And did you tell Mrs. Keenan that Janet Arvizo said they no longer had medical insurance?
Yes.
Did you tell Mrs. Keenan that Janet Arvizo said the financial toll on the family has been undescribable?
I don't recall those words, actually.
Would it refresh your recollection if I just show you this article?
Well, which article?
The article written by Miss Causer. Might that refresh your recollection on what that word was?
Probably.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to review that portion of the article?
Not recently.
Okay, I mean just this second. Did you have a chance to look at that?
Just recently now, yes.
Does it refresh your recollection about what you told Miss Keenan?
Yes.
And did you tell Miss Keenan that Janet Arvizo told you that the financial toll on the family has been undescribable?
Yes.
Now, did you tell Miss Keenan that Janet Arvizo told you that becoming a comedian is Gavin's dream?
Yes.
Your Honor, that's double hearsay. I'm sorry. Double hearsay.
Just a moment, please.
Sure.
It's overruled.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear your answer, Miss Causer.
Yes.
Okay, and did you tell Miss Keenan that Janet Arvizo told you that before his illness, he, meaning Gavin, attended Rush Hour and became friends with Chris Tucker, who has become a big brother to him?
Yes.
And did you tell Miss Keenan that Janet Arvizo told you that Mag Nicola, a stand-up comic on the Jamie Foxx show, was also an important support to Gavin?
Yes.
Did you tape record your interview with Janet Arvizo?
Yes.
And at some point did you double-check to see if the fact about the chemotherapy costing $12,000 was correct?
Yes.
That wasn't a typographical error, was it?
I don't believe so.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
No questions.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Call your next witness.
We'll call Maria Ventura. Maria Ventura. We need an interpreter.
I'll remind you that you're still under oath. You're still under oath, and you may be seated.
Okay, of course.
Miss Ventura, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to direct your attention, please, to the 27th of August of 1998.
That's fine.
All right. On that particular occasion, in the evening hours, did you proceed to a shopping mall in the West Covina area?
Yes.
Did you go there for purposes of picking up your grandchildren?
Yes.
Was that the day your daughter Janet and her then-husband David were arrested?
Yes.
When you got to the shopping mall, was either David or Janet still there? Were either one of them still there?
Janet was there, a police officer, a patrol car, and the kids.
Okay. Did you, which kids?
Gavin and Star.
Did you take the children home with you?
Yes.
Was Janet taken by the police?
Yes.
How long did the children stay with you?
Till the next day.
All right.
Because I called her. The kids were not well.
All right. What was the matter with the children?
They complained all night. Star was complaining about a headache, and Gavin, his arm. And I gave them Tylenol.
All right. The next day, did somebody take them to the doctor?
Yes, both of them.
Okay.
Janet and David.
All right. Did David or Janet see either of the boys from the time you picked them up?
Objection. Foundation.
Let me re-ask that question again. You took the two boys from the shopping mall directly to your house, is that true?
No, I went to see if I could get my daughter out.
Okay. Where were the boys when you went to get your daughter?
With me.
In the car?
We walked over there to the police station.
It's not too far from the shopping mall.
No, the mall is right there, and then we just came like that in the car, and then we got out and went in.
Was your husband with you?
He was driving.
Okay. And were you able to get your daughter out at that time?
No.
And did you then go back to your home?
Yes.
And that's your home in El Monte?
Yes.
All right. And did you stay at your home that night with your two grandsons, Star and Gavin?
Yes.
Do you know approximately what time it was that Janet and her husband David arrived at your house and took the boys?
The next day.
All right. Do you know approximately what time the next day that was?
I don't remember.
Thank you. No further questions.
No cross-examination.
All right. Thank you. You may step down. Call your next witness.
Recall Detective Bonner, Your Honor.
All right. Be seated. You're still under oath.
Thank you.
Your Honor, before I begin questioning Detective Bonner again, I brought up the issue of an SDT. I think we'll need it admitted into evidence. Mr. Sanger mentioned he needed to get his reports. I believe he's had time to do that.
Well, that would assume facts not in evidence, but if we're talking about the Brad Miller phone records, we can proceed with those.
Pre-marked as Exhibit 448.
We can proceed with those, Your Honor.
So all.
May I approach the clerk, Your Honor?
You're consenting to their admission, counsel?
Yes. In other words, they were subpoenaed.
Okay. So 448 is admitted.
Well, the question, all right. They're subpoenaed, and so I don't know what part he's going to mark, so I'll wait until I find out.
Well, you're not, I misunderstood. You're not consenting to their admission. You want him to proceed. I'm not sure what you're agreeing to. That's all.
Okay, I had earlier indicated to counsel that I needed time to look at this. I don't need any more time to look at them, but I don't know what he's going to do with them.
You're not agreeing to anything.
Assuming he's not marking the affidavit, if he wants to mark the phone records, just to make it easy, so we can get it done, if he wants to mark the phone records as a particular document or a particular exhibit, I have no objection to that. And I'll agree that there is a foundation laid, provided, pursuant to the subpoena.
We actually marked the envelope that all of those documents came in. We would withdraw the actual affidavit of the custodian of records prior to introducing them into evidence.
All right.
I don't believe there's an argument they're the Brad Miller phone records for January, February and March of 2003. And I would ask just a couple of foundational questions prior to moving them into evidence.
All right. Go ahead.
Detective Bonner, placed in front of you are the contents of Exhibit 448. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the first page of those documents appears to be the certification of the custodian of records from Payless Cellular. Is that true?
That's true.
And have you examined a copy of these documents and ascertained what they are?
Yes, I have. And they are the cellular telephone records for an account belonging to Bradley Miller.
Do they cover a period of January through March of the year 2003?
They do.
We'd move Exhibit 448 into evidence at this time. Your Honor, save the certificate of authenticity.
All right, and I have no objection.
Well, they're admitted.
Thank you.
And let's mark the certificate of, or let's just lodge the certificate.
We can also mark it as Exhibit 447, if that works.
All right, mark it 447, but it does not go in evidence.
Madam Clerk? Detective Bonner, I've handed you Exhibit 449, and do you recognize those cellular telephone records for Mark Garrigus and the firm Garrigus and Garrigus?
That's correct.
And do they cover a period of January through March of the year 2003?
I believe February through March of 2003.
Okay. And I believe, Your Honor, counsel agreed to a stipulated foundation on those records, and we move those into evidence, if I'm accurately representing the stipulation.
Just offer them in.
It's a little bit confusing because counsel's got different numbers than we had before. Let me just look. I had 460. Is 460 just the diagram?
449 are the actual.
Is this 449? No. That's all 460. Alright, let me take a look at 449. Just a moment, please. If I may approach for that.
Yes.
With regard to 449, I've decided to say I don't have a horse in this arena, but, if I can, but 449 does have apparently the other. What would be sensitive, confidential attorney-client phone numbers, I would suppose, from a law firm. And I think, as an officer of the court, as I said before, we should be cautious with that. If it's being admitted, unless there's some protective order, it would be open to the public. I don't want to make a big thing out it, but I think I should make that point to the court.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
With respect to all the phone numbers, all the phone records that were introduced throughout this trial, we'd make a motion that they be sealed from public view at the end of the case, and that they only be shown to court personnel, the attorneys and the jury.
You'll have to file a formal written motion.
We will.
But assuming you're going to do that, I'll admit the records with that understanding.
Thank you, Your Honor. And finally, if I may approach the witness with Exhibit 460. That's.
Yeah, 460 I've got.
Detective Bonner, is Exhibit 460 a series of telephone link charts and supporting documentation that you created for the rebuttal portion of this case?
That is correct.
And with respect to Exhibit number 449 and Exhibit number 448, did you examine the contents of those telephone tolls for Mr. Miller and Mr. Garrigus in coming up with your charts?
I did.
As exhibited in Exhibit 460?
That's correct.
And does the period of time of Exhibit number 460 cover the months of February and March of 2003?
That is correct.
Okay. If you could turn your attention to the first two pages, 2 to 4 and 2 to 5.
2 to 4 and 2 to 6?
Excuse me, 2 to 4 and 2 to 6. You put the year, 05 on that?
That is incorrect.
It is, 03?
Yes.
Do the rest of the charts show the proper year of 2003?
They do.
Now, with respect to the link charts in Exhibit 460, did you try to show the communications between telephones registered to Mr. Garrigus, Mr. Miller and the other unindicted co-conspirators in this case?
That is correct.
I'm going to object to the characterization by counsel and move to strike. My point being it should be, at the very least, alleged.
All right, use the word, alleged, at least.
I would substitute the word, other, with, alleged.
All right.
That's correct.
Okay. With the alleged co-conspirators in this case, can you quantify for the jury, please, generally, approximately how many communications within that period of time occurred between the cell phone registered to Mr. Garrigus and the cell phone registered to Mr. Miller?
A minimum of 50 telephone calls.
And the cell phone belonging to Mr. Garrigus and the cell phone belonging to Mr. Schaffel?
In excess of 15 telephone calls.
15?
15.
Did you note any communication between the cell phone registered to Mr. Miller and Mr. Frank Cassio?
Yes, I did. There were in excess of 60 telephone calls between those two telephones.
Generally, without going into each exhibit in there, if I could please have input 4, Your Honor, please. I'd like to show you the chart you've created for February 12 of 2003.
Should it be input 4?
Input 4.
That's input 4.
Ah, thank you, Mr. Auchincloss. Now, this appears to resemble the charts you previously testified about, with the exception of a number of links. If you could explain the differences to the jury, please.
Absolutely. Basically what we did here is, in reviewing the records of Brad Miller and the Garrigus records, we found that there were links between Garrigus, Brad Miller, Mark Schaffel and Cassio, and because of that, we also included the existing phone analysis involving the alleged co-conspirators as well as Neverland Ranch.
Did you find any three-way calls between the phones of Garrigus and Garrigus, Brad Miller and Mark Schaffel?
On the 12th, there was one three-way call between Mr. Garrigus, Mr. Miller and Mr. Schaffel.
And do your records indicate whether or not Mr. Garrigus, or the phone registered to Mr. Garrigus, was the initiating party in that three-way conversation between those three phones?
My recollection is that it was, yes.
Okay. If you could turn your attention to the chart for February 19, please, of 2003. Once again, if you could explain to the jury the difference in this chart compared to the chart you testified to in the People's Case in Chief.
In the original charts, we did not have the Brad Miller or Garrigus and Garrigus records. Upon including these records, we found connections between Garrigus and Miller and several of the co-conspirators. Because of that, we have included them within this graphic.
Objection and move to strike the answer.
Can we try to refer to the alleged co-conspirators, Sergeant?
I thought I did, but.
Okay.
Is that the objection, counsel?
That was the objection, Your Honor.
All right.
With respect to the chart in your spreadsheet, which is I believe the last part of Exhibit 460, did you try to capture all of the calls on the spreadsheet on these diagrams?
Yes, I did.
And there were a few that you didn't put on here for one reason or another.
Correct.
Is there a link on February 19 between the Mark Schaffel phone and the Garrigus phone directly?
That's correct. There should have been one.
Okay. And were there any three-way calls on the 15th?
Again, I believe there was one three-way call involving Mr. Schaffel's phone, Mr. Miller's phone and Mr. Garrigus's phone.
Okay. And when did the toll records become available to you for the Garrigus and Garrigus phones?
I believe that was on Tuesday of this week.
And that was pursuant to a court order?
I believe so.
If you could turn your attention, please, to the February 20, 2003, chart. Once again, you just added the Brad Miller tolls, the Garrigus and Garrigus tolls to the alleged co-conspirators?
That's correct.
Do your records reflect whether any three-way calls between the Brad Miller phone, Garrigus phone and the Schaffel phone occurred on Thursday, February 20 of 2003?
I believe there was one call, yes.
And with respect to the telephone calls between the Miller phone and the Casio phone, were those predominantly one direction or both directions?
My recollection is both directions.
In analyzing the records for the entire period between February 1 and the end of March of 2003, did you find daily or nearly daily contact between the Brad Miller phone and the Garrigus and Garrigus phone?
Nearly daily would probably be the better terminology.
And if I asked you the same question with respect to the Brad Miller phone and the Frank Casio phone, how would you answer that?
Nearly daily, again.
Was there also a substantial amount of contact between Mr. Amen and Mr. Schaffel during that period of time?
Yes, there was.
Or at least the phones registered to them?
Correct.
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor. Sergeant Bonner, if you would turn to the next chart. Not the next chart, the chart for Saturday, February 22 of 2003. I'm sorry, I misled you. I do want to go to the 21st. I apologize. And does the chart for February 21 of 2003 accurately reflect the phone records that you analyzed for the individuals seen up there on the chart?
That is correct.
Okay. I only want to ask you specifically about the call between the Garrigus phone and the Schaffel phone, and calls between the Garrigus phone and the Brad Miller phone. Do your records show that the call from the Garrigus phone to the Schaffel phone was one placed by the Garrigus phone?
The Garrigus and Schaffel connection was from Garrigus's phone to Schaffel's phone.
Okay. With respect to the calls between the Garrigus phone and the Miller phone, were those one directional or both directions?
Both directions.
Okay. Generally, with respect to the phone calls between the Garrigus phone and the Schaffel phone, were those conversations longer than 1 or 2 minutes? I'm asking about the whole volume.
In general, usually they were longer. They were usually 10 to 13-minute telephone calls.
Okay. If I asked you the same question with respect to the Garrigus phone and the Miller phone, what would your answer be?
Again, usually more than 1 to 2 minutes. But in this case, more like the 4 to 6 minute time frame.
If you could turn to the chart for February 22, 2003, a Saturday. And with respect to the calls between the Garrigus phone and the Brad Miller phone, were those generally over 1 minute in length?
Yes.
And can you tell us what time of day those calls began?
The first telephone call I have is at about 9:26 a.m. for 5 minutes.
And that's from the Miller end to the Garrigus end?
I believe that's actually the Garrigus phone calling the Miller phone.
Oh, I apologize. And if you could tell us when those calls last came in on the 22nd.
The last call I have is at 5:23 p.m. for 3 minutes. Again, a call from Garrigus's phone to Miller's phone.
If I may yield the questioning to the district attorney, Your Honor. Could I have the lights, please? Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. While they're talking, may I offer Exhibit 460 into evidence, Your Honor?
I think before it's admitted, I do have a reason to ask some questions.
All right.
I'd like to do that. Thank you. I can wait until cross-examination, unless the court wants me to do it on voir dire.
All right, we'll just wait. I'm sorry. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. All right, we're just going to go ahead. I gave you a copy of this morning, right?
Yes.
Sergeant Bonner, I think you previously testified in this case that you were present at the Neverland Valley Ranch on November 18, 2003, during a portion of the execution of the search warrant, correct?
That is correct.
And during the course of the execution of that search warrant, you had occasion to go into what we call the master suite or master bedroom of the defendant in this case, Mr. Jackson, correct?
That's correct.
And during the time that you were in Mr. Jackson's room, the master suite, let's just call it that for right now, master bedroom, did you hear the chimes go off in that area?
Yes, I did.
Now, did you at that time have occasion to examine the mechanism by which the chimes were activated?
No.
Now, did you go back on December the 4th of 2004?
Correct.
And you were on the premises at that time, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
Did you have occasion at that time, and you were in the bedroom, Mr. Jackson's bedroom, correct?
I was, yes.
Both upstairs and downstairs, correct?
Correct.
Did you have occasion at that time to examine the mechanism by which those chimes were activated?
I did. I was present, along with the security personnel who was examining it and explaining the workings to us.
And were you present when the chimes were actually activated during the time that you were in the bedroom suite on that particular occasion?
I was.
Were you also present in the bedroom on the 18th of November of 2003 when the chimes were activated?
Yes, I was.
Now, I want to show you some photographs. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. Your Honor, I've had 3 photographs. They've been marked for identification purposes and I've shown them to counsel. They're marked as 157, 159 and 160 for identification purposes. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Detective Bonner, let's start with the photograph that's marked as 157 for identification purposes, okay? Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
This is a picture.
Before you tell me what it is, just tell me, do you recognize what's depicted?
Yes, I do.
And is it an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes, it is.
Let's turn to 159. And do you recognize what's depicted in the exhibit People's 159?
Yes, I do.
And is that an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes, it is.
Alright, and let's go to 160. Alright, now, with regard to 160, do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Is that an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes, it is.
Alright, I move that 157 and 159 and 160 be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
Could I voir dire briefly on that, please?
Yes.
Did you take those photographs?
No, I did not.
Do you know who took them?
I know. I do not specifically know who took these exact photographs, no.
Do you know what date those particular photographs were taken on?
I do not, other than one of the 2 days that we were out there.
Do you believe that because you believe that would be the 2 days that somebody might have had access to take those sorts of photos?
And because I know, I have reviewed these and I know that it came out of the photographs that our forensics people took during the service of our warrants.
I don't think that's an adequate foundation, but I don't know if the court can understand the basis without looking at the photographs and perhaps having us approach for a moment.
All right. Do you want to bring the photographs over?
Yes. Thank you. And may we approach?
Yes. Discussion held off the record at sidebar. Let's see. Did you offer those?
They're admitted. I'm sorry, I'm taking your job over. I think I asked that they be admitted.
All right. They're admitted. Laughter.
I'm sure no offense was taken at that, Your Honor.
I was almost ready to hand it over to you.
That would be a big mistake.
You need to turn your microphone on so they can hear you.
It's on.
No, him.
Judge, I don't think your mic is working.
My mind is, oh, my mic. Laughter.
Detective Bonner, excuse me. Detective Bonner, with regard to the chime system at the Neverland Valley Ranch connected with the defendant's bedroom. Okay. Did you actually have occasion to be present when the chimes were activated on November 18, 2003?
Asked and answered, twice.
I'm trying to go back and satisfy your.
The objection is asked and answered.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Yes, I was.
And did you also, were you present on the 12th, on the 4th of December of 2004 during the time that you were out there when the chimes were activated?
Yes, I was.
And did you personally participate in experiments to determine how the various chimes were activated?
Yes, I did.
And did you personally observe the sensors that activated certain portions of the chimes?
Yes, I did.
And did you personally hear those chimes when they were activated?
Yes, I did.
Now, with regard to, we're going to put some photographs up on the board. Are you also familiar with the mechanism by which entry into the door of the suite to Mr. Jackson's bedroom can be accessed?
Yes, I am.
Alright, now, let's put some photographs up on the board. And let's begin with 160. Alright, do you recognize what's depicted in the photograph People's Exhibit 160 in evidence?
Yes, I do.
Would you tell the jury what that is?
That is a curtain motion sensor. It is mounted on the ceiling and it sends down what can probably be best described as a blanket of the sensor, and as soon as you walk into that blanket, it would then set off whatever it's supposed to set off.
And in this case?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm going to move to strike the answer as being an opinion without a foundation.
Sustained.
In this particular case, did you actually conduct experiments with regard to this particular sensor as depicted in the photograph, Exhibit 160?
Yes, I did.
As you walked past the sensor, what happened?
As I walked underneath the sensor, the alarm sounded within the living space of the master bedroom suite.
And could you tell the jury where this particular sensor is located in the hallway to Mr. Jackson's bedroom?
That sensor is located just outside of the door that leads into the living space of Michael Jackson's master bedroom suite.
Alright, now, let's turn to 157. Do you recognize what's depicted in the photograph 157?
Yes, I do.
In particular, do you recognize what's depicted, the little white, what appears to be a white rectangular box in the middle, in the center of the photograph?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
That is the alarm annunciator, which was set off when you broke the plane of the curtain sensor that was on the ceiling outside of his bedroom.
Now, was there more than one curtain sensor outside of Mr. Jackson's bedroom?
Yes, there was.
Was there a second sensor?
There was a second sensor that was located down the hallway, just prior, at the doorway leading into what I guess could be called a foyer or entryway to the house.
So that if you're in the foyer and you open the doors and walk through those doors down the hallway to Mr. Jackson's bedroom, there's a sensor up by those doors?
Yes.
And do they activate a chime within the room?
On both November 18, 2003, and December 4, 2004, there was no activation of an annunciator within the room when you walked under the curtain sensor that was closest to the foyer.
Now, you had occasion to review the defense exhibit that was admitted in this case with regard to the 3 scenes where the maid was asked to walk out the door and down the hallway, correct?
That's correct.
In those particular scenes that you observed, the sensor at the far end of the hallway near where the doors from the foyer are was working during the course of those videos, correct?
I believe.
Objection. Move to strike the answer for the purpose of objecting. There's no foundation for this opinion.
Well, sustained, the foundation objection.
Were you present on the 18th of November of 2003 where you saw people walk through the entryway, Through those doors from the foyer into the hallway, to begin to walk down to Mr. Jackson's bedroom? Were you present and did you hear any alarm go off when they did that?
No.
Objection. Wait. Excuse me. Objection. That's compound. And I move to strike the answer, because it would be without foundation as to at least one of those two parts.
Judge, I asked him if he was present.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. The question is basically whether he heard an alarm go off on that date when someone walked under the sensor, right?
That's basically it, when he was present.
And the objection is, yeah. The objection is no foundation that he was present while somebody was walking under that sensor.
All right, the objection is overruled. Do you understand the question?
I do. And the answer is that, yes, I was there, and, no, it did not activate anything when somebody walked under the sensor.
Was that the same situation in December when you went, December of 2004 when you went back?
That's correct.
Now, so we could probably orient this for the ladies and gentlemen. The exhibit that's on the board there, which is 160, I believe. 157. 157, the one with the white box in the middle. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, where is that located in Mr. Jackson's bedroom? Is it on? Let's start, first of all, is it on the first floor or on the second floor?
It's on the first floor in the living area of the master bedroom suite.
Where in the living area of the suite?
It was located underneath a bookcase, cabinet that was backed against a wall nearest the, as you're walking into the room, the left bathroom.
Would that be the bathroom where the jacuzzi is?
That's correct.
Alright, now, did you determine that there was another one of these devices that's depicted in the photograph, 157, within the room?
That's correct.
Where was the second device located?
It was located on the ground, underneath a red and gold chair, also could be considered a throne, I suppose.
Where was that located in Mr. Jackson's bedroom?
That was located against the same wall, but this chair was located immediately next to the doorway that led into the right bathroom the bathroom that had the stairwell leading to the upstairs sleeping quarters.
Now, in December of 2004 when you were out there, did you personally participate in some experiments to determine whether or not the device located under the throne chair, that's similar to the one depicted in 157, was working?
Yes.
Did you determine whether or not it was working?
There was at no point in time, in walking under any of the sensors, that annunciator was activated.
So you call it an annunciator, is that correct?
That's the correct terminology.
But the one depicted in 157, over by the entrance to the bathroom where the jacuzzi is, was working.
It was working, correct.
Now, on November the 18th of 2003, when you went out to execute the search warrant. Okay. On that particular occasion, did you personally determine whether or not the annunciator that was located under the throne seat, as you referred to it, was working on that date?
That would be a yes or no. Otherwise, I have an objection.
Okay. Answer, yes or no, only.
Yes.
You were able to make a determination? Yes or no?
Yes.
And what was it?
I'm going to object. No foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
It was not working.
Alright, let's show the last photograph. That should get us through the rest of the day. This is 159 in evidence, and particularly I want to direct your attention to the small white device that is located by the doorway. First of all, do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know what it is?
Because I was present when the security personnel analyzed it, and I also tested that object.
Yourself?
Yes.
Alright, and what is that? What function does it serve?
I'm going to object.
It's a motion sensor.
I'm going to object. It calls for hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
It is a motion sensor that, when activated, unlocks the entry-exit doors to Mr. Jackson's personal bedroom, allowing a person to walk out without needing a key.
Okay, so, the view that the jury has of this particular exhibit, and let's direct your attention directly to the door itself. Where would you be standing if you were looking at that door?
You are inside Mr. Jackson's living area of his personal bedroom, looking out into the hallway which leads to the foyer.
Your Honor, I think this would be an appropriate time to.
All right, we'll take our recess. See you tomorrow, 8:30. Remember the admonition.